Of the plethora of iconic movie monsters, there are few to surpass the popularity of the zombie. Appearing in many cultures' folklore, the concept of an undying soulless body has been a mainstay of society for several centuries. Believed to be taken from the word "nzombi," meaning God, where others believe the meaning to be body without a soul, the zombie was first brought to the screen in the early 1930s, which has since been welcomed into the world of pop culture. In almost 100 years of cinema, there have been countless interpretations into the lore of the undead, and today we'll be looking at the very best. So join me as I count down the top 10 zombie movies. For this list, I'll be looking at the greatest zombie movies of all time. I'm also being flexible with what defines being requisite of the niche, allowing for the inclusion of certain pictures. Joining me this week, please welcome Bojangles of Talk Horror.
What's up everyone, Steven aka Bojangles here from Talk Horror, and I'm so happy to be doing this list with Demented. I love zombie films. So much gore, so much violence, so much potential to have to kill a loved one. There's a lot involved with this genre, and I feel like it's really going to give me and Demented something to sink our teeth into. Now keep in mind we're only covering one entry per franchise. No remakes, no reboots. So let's get this bad boy started.
Number 10. Considered by some as the godfather of gore, Lucio Fulci's The Beyond is a rare entry into the world of cosmic horror. Following the story of Liza Merrill, a city girl who inherits a hotel, unknowing that it was site of a ritualistic sacrifice that opened a gateway into a hellish dimension. Discovering a doorway that allows entry for otherworldly creatures into reality, Liza's world is slowly consumed by a legion of the undead. The second feature of the Gates of Hell trilogy besides City of the Living Dead and House by the Cemetery, the movie caused immediate controversy, not releasing until 1983 in North America as it was considered too extreme for the time and didn't receive an uncut release until 1998. Although featuring dated practical effects, the movie is not without its charm, showcasing many scenes of unsettling and graphic horror, and although a polarizing movie due to its surrealistic elements, to lovers of horror, The Beyond is an unquestionable classic.
It's fitting that The Beyond take 10th place on this list because we're seriously scraping the bottom of the barrel if we're going to include this. In all seriousness, not a big fan of this one. It is cool that they're not your typically infected humans, so it does give you something a little bit different, and it's a Lucio Fulci film, so there's definitely going to be some gory moments which are totally awesome. And I think there were 3 eye gouges, so the movie is worth watching just for those alone. Still, I am conflicted as to whether or not this constitutes as a zombie flick. They're possessed by demons, so going by that logic, if they're zombies, then the Deadites in Evil Dead would be considered zombies as well.
Number 9. Intending to cash in on the popularity of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, Zombie 2 was released without a precursor movie. However, the picture would surpass its marketing technique and become recognized as its own entity. Again directed by Lucio Fulci and using Haitian lore, the movie tells of a daughter searching for her father on a Caribbean island that's also home to the undead, becoming one of the main offenders of the video nasty furor of 1984, alongside Cannibal Holocaust and Last House on the Left, branded for its extreme horror and disturbing visuals. Featuring the most disturbing interpretations of its time and one of the most insane stunts ever performed in cinema, that being a fight scene with an actual live shark. Releasing to even greater success than its pseudo-prequel, Zombie 2 remains a highly praised picture in the zombie genre.
You can't have a top 10 zombie movies list without, well, zombie. Seriously, this has one of the best eye gouges in horror movie history, a zombie shark fight. How the hell did they pull that off? And those Italians sure love their tatas. But seriously, this is an amazing flick with some amazing practical effects. Don't be surprised if you become paralyzed with fear, as do most of the protagonists in this movie. By the end of it, you really start to feel the desperation of the characters weighing on you. Honestly, I'm surprised Zombie didn't make it higher on this list. Being ranked this close to The Beyond makes me hungry for your brains, Demented. Whoa.
Number 8. Expanding what qualifies as a zombie, Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later is truly deserving of being included. Excluding any form of supernatural abilities and working purely as a viral epidemic. Telling the story of Jim, an everyman who awakens after 28 days following a coma to a post-apocalyptic homeland. Soon learning the populace has fallen victim to maniacal rage. Upon discovering other survivors, the movie becomes a race to find safe haven, all to discover that not all monsters are the infected. Featuring a profound statement on society, the success of the movie is credited to the boom of zombie movies of the 2000s, and also proved that the genre was welcome in the world of pop culture on a major scale. Filled with heartbreak, jaw-dropping cinematography, intense bloody action, and outstanding character writing, 28 Days Later also hones one of the most haunting soundtracks and remains one of the greatest British horror movies of the 21st century.
28 Days Later, huh? Well, if you're a fan of the fast-moving zombies, then you gotta give it up to this film, because it's the granddaddy. I'm not going to dig out my horror movie history books right now, but it is definitely the first movie I can remember with fast zombies, and it was a thing of brutal beauty. These zombies freaking mean it. They can't be bargained with, they can't be reasoned with, they don't feel pity or remorse or fear, and they absolutely will not stop ever until you're dead. I freaking love this movie. But seriously, I'm gonna have to be right back. I'm gonna have to go up my cardio game if I'm gonna survive this. So take it away for now, Demented.
Number 7. From the warped mind that brought The Lord of the Rings to the big screen, Peter Jackson's Dead Alive would release to immediate high status as the then goriest movie of its time. Originally making his name as a shock horror prodigy, the movie tells of Lionel, a mama's boy who becomes keeper to a horde of zombies, including his own mother. Despite the insane practical effects, what also made the movie shine was its inclusion of equally insane humor, making for one of the most laugh-out-loud features of its time. Interestingly, Jackson would unite the movie with his future blockbuster King Kong and are officially set within the same universe. Unexpectedly answering the question to the result of zombie procreation, and releasing to theaters with an accompanying barf bag, Dead Alive is one of the most entertaining and quotable gore fests of all time.
Peter Jackson, you sly bastard. I expected a little bit more out of the dude who went on to give us the Lord of the Rings films. Now don't get me wrong, the dark humor in Dead Alive is great, and the gross out moments are really effective. But the whole movie is filmed like a freaking early 90s Sega Genesis commercial. Our protagonist is really weak, which becomes annoying rather quickly. There's even a zombie baby they include in the movie, and who doesn't love a little brain-eating zombie bundle of joy? But of course they go way too over the top with it, like they do with everything else in the movie, and that even becomes annoying. If you want great gore with some dark humor, Dead Alive is definitely going to deliver, but it's going to over-deliver in my book.
Number 6. Again expanding the definition of what counts as a zombie, the found footage feature Wreck would prove to be one of the finest of the subgenre. A Catalonian production released in 2008, the movie documents a late-night editorial show that become trapped inside an apartment building whose residents become infected with a maniacal thirst for blood. Starring real-life reporter Manuela Velasco, we witness the carnage through the eyes of her cameraman Pablo, creating an unparalleled experience in intense horror and capturing every moment of gory insanity that builds to one of the most unnerving final scenes in the history of horror. Spawning its own franchise, Wreck is possibly the most immersive picture in the genre and stands as an outstanding contribution to the zombie universe, which many believe to be the greatest found footage movie of them all.
Who wants a recipe for crapping their pants while watching a horror movie? You do? Well, just combine zombies with found footage and boom, there you go. Grab your Huggies and go to town, my friends, because Wreck is a found footage masterpiece. It's wild how you feel sucked right into the movie with the characters. Our protagonist is a reporter, and through her, you're drawn into the mystery in a way that you aren't in most zombie flicks. Most make the cause pretty clear fairly early on, but Wreck really makes you wonder what's really happening with these people and why. And the payoff is really unique. Just one more thing to love about this movie.
Number 5. From the legendary horror author H.P. Lovecraft comes his retelling of the tale of Frankenstein, Re-Animator. Having discovered a serum that brings life to the dead, the movie documents the experiments of the delightfully twisted Dr. West. Performed by the legendary Jeffrey Combs in possibly his most iconic role, the story follows his increasing lack of sanity as he strives to protect the serum from his scientific nemesis Dr. Hill, played by the late and criminally underappreciated David Gale. Showcasing the peak of practical effects of the era, the darkest of humor, and produced by schlockmaster Brian Usna, the movie was instantly heralded as the greatest adaptation of Lovecraft's literature, a title which is still held to this day. And despite its parallels with Frankenstein, Re-Animator stands on its own, not only as an outstanding zombie movie, but also one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies of the 1980s.
So, what do you do when you want to save lives? Well, you can either become a doctor like good old Dan, or you can become a mad scientist like Herbert West. I love this movie and how these two characters essentially want to accomplish the same thing, but they do it in very different ways. The movie is fun, it's funny, there's green goo and a syringe, there's a reanimated dead cat, and the antagonist at one point essentially becomes a reanimated head who still tries to move forward with his evil plan, which eventually leads to him being able to kidnap the girl of his dreams. It's so silly and so fun, Re-Animator will reanimate your love for horror.
Number 4. Again inspired by the work of George A. Romero, Return of the Living Dead would push the zombie lore to the absolute extreme. Presenting the creature not as a single entity, but as a cellular intelligence, allowing for dismembered body parts to become separate and individual antagonists, breaking all pre-established rules to create the most indestructible envisioning scene in cinema. Directed by Dan O'Bannon, and starring a host of B-movie royalty, including legendary scream queen Linnea Quigley, the movie would also feature some of the most impressive practical effects of its time and become the epitome of 80s trash horror. Spawning its own franchise, Return of the Living Dead is recognized as one of the most iconic 80s schlock horror movies and arguably the most enjoyably chaotic and rock and roll picture of the entire genre.
Return of the Living Dead, I like it, spooky. Is it just me, or is this one of those films that you just want to be a part of? It looks like everyone is having so much fun. Seriously, whether it's the teens that just want to get together and have a party in a cemetery, or the numbskulls working at a freaking medical supply warehouse, it looks like everyone's having a freaking blast, man. You know, even though there are hordes of zombies running around trying to eat people. And can we talk about the zombies in this one? Even though this film is a comedy, these are some of the absolute toughest reanimated corpses you're going to come across in a horror film. They're intelligent enough to speak and even manipulate the living into feeding them. If you want a movie that's fun, scary, and funny all at the same time, well, you found it in this one. Just remember, this isn't a movie, it's a way of life.
Number 3. The newest movie on this list, as recent as 2016, is a testament to the greatness of Train to Busan. A first-time picture by anime director Yeon Sang-ho, the movie follows an estranged father and daughter as they travel to meet her mother when a zombie outbreak plagues the country. Taking place almost entirely on the train, the incurred claustrophobia and intensity are only amplified. Despite the intense action and notable horror, the standout feature of the movie is its astounding character development, creating a rarely seen protagonist attachment that arguably makes for the most heartfelt and emotional narrative of the entire subgenre. Winning 10 awards including Best Film and Best New Director, and also receiving the anime feature Seoul Station and the sequel Peninsula, Train to Busan is a movie bound for classic status.
Oh man, where to even start with Train to Busan? Seriously, this movie has some amazing character development. You're going to fall in love with them and even despise some of them. But either way, you're going to feel something for every person in this movie. It's also incredible to watch some of these characters grow into everything that you wished and hoped they would become. It's nice that the plot has some meat on its bones, and there's more to this movie than just being worried about the zombies. Also, let's give it up for just how freaking claustrophobic this movie is. Jeez, these people are trapped on a train with ravenous, super fast zombies that just don't stop. Much like this movie, Seriously, once this thing gets started, it doesn't stop. This movie does not let up. It does not give you a second to catch your breath.
Number 2. Where spoof humor is considered by many to be lowbrow, cheap entertainment, Shaun of the Dead proved that parody can also be respectful and praising. Starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost as two have-a-go hero nobodies who overlook the zombie apocalypse, upon realizing, take matters into their own hands to save Shaun's family and try to win back his recently ex-girlfriend. Serving as a love letter to the movies that inspired them as filmmakers, Edgar Wright would pepper the movie with countless homages to his inspirations, making for an equally entertaining Easter egg hunt. Perfectly blending romance, zombies, and comedy, the self-proclaimed rom-com is also considered one of the most important movies of the early 2000s, being the first comedy to top the box office in the wake of 9/11. Still a beloved movie to all walks of cinema-goers, Shaun of the Dead is unquestionably one of the most funny, most charming, and most respectful horror comedies of them all.
Shaun of the Dead makes you want to go to the pub, have a pint, and wait for all of this to blow over. Seriously, while watching this movie, you're going to be thinking about how much you would like to be friends with these guys and have a beer with them. It's one of those movies where you can easily put yourself in the protagonist's shoes. These are a couple of goofball friends that are just trying to survive a zombie apocalypse as well as a broken heart the best way they know how, while navigating through life and all of its mundane tasks, while also trying to avoid those pesky flesh-eating zombies. It's a juggling act, but these clowns can handle it.
Before we get to number 1, if you enjoyed Demanded Top 10s, show your appreciation by hitting the thumbs up button, and be sure to subscribe to keep up with the channel. Also, have you seen future Top 10s and follow Demanded Pictures on Facebook, or consider supporting the show on Patreon. Links in the description box below. And a huge shout out to Travis Kovar and also to Ken Day Jones as my top tier patron. Number 1. What George Romero began with Night of the Living Dead, he perfected with the 1978 sequel, Dawn of the Dead. Continuing his trademark social cynicism, he would write the story as a mockery of the materialistic world, following the survivors of the zombie apocalypse as they attempt to exist and confined within a shopping mall. Making full benefit of a Hollywood budget and employing FX master Tom Savini to create the most iconic envisioning of the zombie, the picture would also be the first time that a zombie movie would be considered a worldwide success. Also inspiring countless movies to be suffixed with the Of the Dead title, including its own franchise and a respectful remake in 2004. The movie has surpassed all expectation to become one of the most quintessential pieces in horror history. Pleasing almost all walks of cinema lover and serving as an exemplary statement against consumerism, Dawn of the Dead is not only one of the greatest horror movies, but also one of the greatest movies of all time.
Why are they blue? But seriously, you have to expect Dawn of the Dead to be the number 1 zombie flick on a lot of people's lists. It's the ultimate fantasy scenario. Remember when you were a kid and you used to fantasize about being able to spend the entire night in a mall? Well, these people get to live that dream. And why wouldn't they? They're in the midst of a zombie apocalypse. A mall is going to offer shelter, food, water, and Orange Julius. It's just as fun as it sounds. But eventually you have to remember why they're there, and so do they, which leads to a dire situation. Also, let's give it up to Tom Savini's mustache, which makes an epic appearance.
So there was my list. Were there any I missed? Which zombie movies do you love the most? Leave a comment below, and a huge thank you to Talk Horror for appearing in this episode.
Now that we've hit the end of this video, I have to say that if this was my list, I would have made a few changes. Number 1, The Beyond would be out of here, off the list. So would Dead Alive. I would bring Night of the Creeps into the top 10, and I'm not sure if this counts or not, but Pet Sematary would also have to make the list. I love that movie, and if there's an inkling of the chance that it could be included, it's gotta be on there for me. Overall though, I would still say that this is an excellent list, with some amazing choices. Speaking of which, another great thing I've had to bring into question while working on this is I've really had to consider what makes a zombie movie a zombie movie. This is a topic that I would love to dive into more with Demented in the future. Big props go out to Demented for allowing me to participate in this amazing video. I had a freaking blast. Also, thanks to every single one of you for watching. If you'd like to stay in touch with me and check out some of my stuff, come on over to Talk Horror and become part of the horror fam. Just don't forget to send more paramedics. Alright, stay scared, my friends.
Be sure to check out some other top 10s on screen now. And remember, no list is definitive but the one you make yourself. This is Mike from Demented Pictures saying, may your movies be bloody and your scares be shitless.